Hey, Rand, thanks for coming back to the Dealer Playbook.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Michael.
It's crazy. We're now into our hundreds of episodes, and you were on episode 19.
Oh, wow.
The other day, I plugged into Facebook. I said, hey, guys, who would you like to see on the next season of the Dealer Playbook? And, you know, it was Rand Fishkin SEO, Rand Fishkin talking about SEO, Rand Fishkin talking about SEO. And I was like, funny you should say this, you know. So super pumped to have you back on. I think especially as it applies to car dealerships as local businesses, and there's been a lot of stuff going on about local SEO and all these sorts of things. So I've got a couple of questions here that I think, you know, my audience, definitely those of you watching and listening in, would want to hear from the mouth of the man. So we're just going to kind of dive in here, and then we'll see where this goes.
Great.
I mean, 2016, SEO... I mean, if we look at historical trends, SEO has just been this thing that continues to evolve, and Google's constantly adding algorithm updates, Bing's adding algorithm updates. Everybody is constantly kind of pushing the envelope with this concept of SEO. I'm wondering if you can give us a bit of insight into, okay, it's 2016. What does that, you know, forgetting kind of, I guess, everything that we've learned up to this point, what is SEO today so that we can kind of have a springboard in our efforts moving forward?
Yeah, I would say SEO today is actually not that dissimilar to what it's been over the last 4 or 5 years. Look, tactics change and opportunities to get visible in Google change, but the fundamentals of SEO have remained the same very consistently for quite a while now. And those are, you know, there's a bunch of things that you need to do technically correctly in order to be visible, crawlable, indexable to Google. Right. And there's a bunch of things that can harm your potential visibility, you know, mistakes that you can make, and you need to avoid those. And then there's serving essentially users and searchers in a fashion that's going to get you engagement and amplification. And those are kind of the two elements, right? If you think about the technical side of SEO and the creative side of SEO, that's essentially what optimization has been for a little while now. And I expect that to actually stick around for.
Do you think people get so caught up on the technicality of SEO that they forget, oh, wait, we're doing this for someone?
Yeah, that can happen. But the reverse happens too. You know, we've seen this huge trend of content marketing. Mm-hmm. And I have seen some awesome, remarkable content marketers producing incredibly creative, really cool pieces that can't rank for crap because they forget to do the fundamental basics of technical SEO. So right. I think either side, right? If you ignore either one, you are not going to have success compared to your competitors who invest in both.
Okay, so, you know, this obviously, I know people are going, okay, well, this is exactly why I'm overwhelmed all the time with SEO. What is the balance? I mean, if you stepped into a local business and it was going to be you kind of coming up with their SEO strategy, and you could only, or you had to find this balance. I mean, What are some of the things that Rand Fishkin is going to focus on right out of the gates?
Well, so the nice thing about a local business is that your visibility tends to correlate well with your overall brand visibility and your sort of popularity in your region. So things that you do to increase your local visibility, run advertising, promotions and events, great content that you create, you know, networks and connections that you form. These things tend to have a positive impact. Search demand that you drive by, you know, becoming more popular in your region, right. By driving more people to look for you. These things have an impact. Then getting the technical SEO side of things right, you know, that is essentially getting your listings everywhere you possibly can in all the places that, you know, Google recommends, but also in all the places that your competitors are being listed in, that other similar businesses are listed in, and in those unique opportunities where maybe you're doing something special with, you know, charities or local organizations, where you are able to sort of earn links and mentions and citations that other businesses are not. That's ideal too. And then making sure that those have great consistency across the board, that's still critically important. You know, you have to be in all these places with the same name, address, telephone number.
Right. So just making sure your citations are lined up across the board. Are there certain listings that are going to be more valuable than others? I mean, like there's youngsingles50.com and they list on these citation sites as a place you should have your NAP listing. No, just steer clear.
Yeah, so I think actually if you go to Moz Local, there's a free resource where the team essentially did an analysis of where do we see people getting listings in various categories that have the highest correlation with them getting ranked in Google Maps and in Google Web Search. And, that is what I take a look at for the fundamentals. Everything else is really looking at an individual, site or domain and saying, how credible and how worthy of a listing do I think this site really is? And you can use good judgment on that. You can also use data, right? You could use something like Moz's domain authority or, link data from Ahrefs or Majestic. You could use, how well does it rank in Google?
Right.
As sort of proxies for, is this actually an important website that I really should get listed on, or is it, young singles 50?
I came up with some domain. I don't know if it's, but yeah, you see a lot of these things out there, and you're like, dude, I don't think I've ever heard of this website before. Obviously you see these lists peppered with the Yelps and the the yellow pages and those sorts of things, which are obvious. But then you go, what is this? Dog grooming 401.com. It's weird. So, and I think this is good to hear, because I do think there's a lot of people that see that and take it at face value and be like, oh, well, the SEOs all say be everywhere, and this showed up in this top 50 list of citation sites that I need to be listed on. And so one of the absolute easiest ways to figure out sites that you should and shouldn't be listed on is take
4 or 5 of your competitors' names, addresses, phone numbers, plug in the addresses and the phone numbers alone, not the name, to Google, see what things come up, and then plug in combinations of their names, right? So if there's 3 folks who are always appearing in the Google local results above you or alongside you, take their names, use them in quotes together in a Google search and see what sites come back that are listing all, 2 or 3 or 4 of those. That is a great list to start with, to say, hey, Google clearly thinks these sites are important enough to rank. They have clearly crawled and indexed them. And they have, NAP data for my competition, for the people who are outranking me, already listed on those sites. Those are probably important places to go to.
Quick little competitive analysis, and boom, you're in with something solid.
Yeah, this is not rocket science, right? It's essentially using a combination of logic and clever searching to sort out, the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, and it's kind of the common sense of it. Like you said, there's logic. If Google has already analyzed these sites and is indexing them already, then chances are they've found validity in them, relevancy, all these sorts of things, and easy strategy for you to implement. And I'm going to list all of this on the show notes for those of you that are listening and watching, because there's some golden nuggets in here. Does there have to be, I guess, shifting gears a little bit to the concept of backlinks? I mean, I know just in recent months, Google's come out, or somebody from Google has come out and said, okay, here's your top 3 ranking factors. I'm not going to necessarily give you the order, though I have my suspicions of the order that they would go in.
Yeah.
But, the content backlinks and rank brain, we're going to leave rank brain alone because I think that's a marathon of a conversation.
Yep.
My opinion is you need to have content to link to in the first place, though still speculating, obviously. Does the relevancy of the backlink matter like the way it's always mattered? And where I'm going with this is, we've interviewed a couple of SEOs, and I'm not going to try and make this Rand versus them or anything like that, but just curious on your take. Sure. They say, hey, look, a local business, you should be looking at, local church websites and local mountain bike websites and local whatever websites as a place to kind of get some backlinks and get some juice flowing and all those sorts of things. What's your take?
I would actually agree with that assessment. I think that the, direct, whatever you want to call it, semantic or topical association of the websites that link to you or mention you is not nearly as important as their credibility, trustworthiness, user and usage data, domain authority, those kinds of things. So, for example, if you told me, hey, I'll give you an example. Moz is listed with the GLBTQ Alliance here in Seattle, right? Gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer business association, right? That is, if you look at the words and phrases that appear on their website, it has nothing to do with SEO or startups or a SaaS business or entrepreneurship or any web marketing, any of the things that Moz has to do. But it is a super relevant local directory of businesses that support GLBTQ individuals and causes. It's a great place to get listed, right? Like, it's a terrific place to get listed. If you look at the site, it's totally credible, high authority, points out to good places, does not link to spam. It is
and it's also kind of working an offline strategy for Moz, because it ties into your culture. Right. It shows that you're supportive of human beings.
Yeah. These are people that we hire, that we work with, who are across all of our teams and our board. Like, it's smart, right? It's just, it makes sense from a strategic standpoint. And therefore, I would not worry that the terms and phrases that appear on the website are not, relevant, classically, topically relevant to what's on Moz's site. Same story, if you're an automobile dealer and you're looking at getting listed on a church website or a charitable organization's website, or you're looking at getting listed on a, maybe there's a local hotel and they say transportation is provided by, your particular auto dealership. Great. That is totally fine. It doesn't matter that the hotel doesn't have anything to do with car dealerships. There's a relationship there. It's a real network relationship. It is honest. It's a great place to get a listing. It's a place where your competitors probably can't get their NAP data, can't get a link. Fantastic. So we have not seen a strong correlation or any reason to believe causally that, non-semantically connected links or citations don't have a positive impact on your Google rankings. I would invest in them if they make sense for your business. I would not worry about the semantics.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger part of it too is making sure that you're not doing it perhaps just for the sake of doing it, but that it actually ties into something relevant. You figured out your business objective, you figured out the SEO piece, you figured out, all these sorts of things. And that's, I think in my observation, that's probably one of the things that is lacking the most is just sitting down and saying, okay, well, what's our plan here? But before the SEO topic even becomes an issue, or before balancing user engagement versus visibility and search engine and the technicalities and all these sorts of things, just sitting down and actually, pen to paper or keyboard, to-do list, figuring out what is it that we're actually trying to achieve and how can we use technology or SEO to achieve those goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this because, that's something that always gets tossed around. Obviously, in especially in the automotive industry, there are a gazillion. That's a real word, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. There are a gazillion quote unquote SEO agencies. Yeah. And we go to these conferences, many of which you've actually spoken at, like driving sales and these sorts of things. But when you get out into these breakout sessions and everybody now starts sharing their high-level opinion of how automotive SEO should be done, the dealers go back to their store. They scramble the jets. It's DEFCON 5. Holy crap, we need to be doing this and we need to be doing that. And this guy said this about SEO and that guy said that about SEO. You've actually done a Whiteboard Friday recently about a similar topic, albeit, kind of at a higher level than that, which is what do we do when Google says these things about SEO, and how do we know who to listen to? Yeah. And how do we learn to decipher the context in which they're saying things so that as a DIYer, if I'm a car dealer, which I know many of them are starting to go towards this DIY approach to their SEO, how do I know who to listen to? What am I looking for, either in an agency or in somebody teaching SEO?
Yeah, I think that, look, when it comes to Google statements, a lot of the time you need to give them a few weeks or a few months to correct, update, amend, add context to those statements. And we see this all the time where Google comes out and, some representative from Google will say one thing about how something operates. And over time, that statement will be refined and more context will be given to it and more specificity about when it does and doesn't apply is given to us. And so I think patience is the order of the day. The other thing I would strongly urge you to do, if you have the bandwidth and you are an SEO professional, is to do your own data and testing, right? Gather your own data, do your own testing. So if Google says, hey, 301s and 302s, we now consider them, or this is not what they said. They said, page rank is now passed through, 301s, 302s, 307s equally.
Right. Which
is not the same as saying every single ranking signal that can possibly be passed by a redirect is always consistently passed by a 302, 307 in the same exact format as a 301. In fact, a week later, they came back and said, quick correction, 301s help more with canonicalization.
Quick correction, English is a very hard language. Yeah. We need to say this 30 different ways for it to just yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right, so it's one of those things where A, patience, and B, testing, right? If you can go ahead and go, hey, let's go take some of the pages that we've redirected, turn them into 302s, see what happens. Let's go take some of the 302s that we have, turn them into 301s, see what happens. Oh, look, the 301s still work better. You know what? I'm gonna stick with that format, right? I'm less interested in what Google says, and I'm much more interested in what works. And I think this is a good reason actually to pay attention to the industry, because there are a lot of SEOs operating out there who are very transparent, very authentic, very honest about things that do and don't work for them. They will share their data. It may not apply to you in exactly the same way, but a lot of the times you can learn a tremendous amount. And I think that, if you have good judgment and can read and decipher the industry critically, you can sort of separate these marketers are very trustworthy. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I know if I read something on Stone Temple from Eric Engie or Mark Traphagen, you know what? It's just right. They are not going to give you wrong data. They test things very thoroughly. They are very considerate about that. They just don't publish stuff willy-nilly. Moz tries to be the same way, right? We try to be a resource where we've investigated things. We add caveats when we don't know something for sure. We show methodology. That's, I think that those are the things that you need to have when you're critically judging stuff in the SEO world.
And this kind of, that answers my follow-up question, which was, I think people have become so fearful of screwing up. I mean, especially if you look at usage of the web in the automotive industry specifically, we're looking at, 20 years or I don't know, 15, 20 years where it's really started to pick up steam. But during that time, there have been so many, I would say, quote unquote, failures that people are too afraid now to experiment because of the risk of failing again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of added this stigma of, oh man, nobody knows what they're talking about anymore, and I don't know who to trust. But what you've said, I think, is a really crucial piece where people's minds are going towards, give me a checklist of questions. In fact, people have asked, can you ask Rand what he would use as interview questions for an SEO agency?
Sure.
Instead of thinking at that level, let's go climb the mountain and carve these questions onto some stone tablets. Let's look at how transparent these companies are with their own experimentations.
Yep.
Maybe even if they're publishing their own failures and what they learned from those things, to kind of make this thesis of, here's what we found works from our own experience, applying what we've learned, et cetera, et cetera. And in so doing, I think that layer of transparency is the differentiator.
For sure. I totally agree. And yeah, I'd say that one of the things, this is another frustration I have with Google, is that, a representative from Google might come out and say, this is true, or this is now true. What they don't say is, by the way, Google has a large number of, websites that have this data on them, and I can prove to you that it works, and here is that analysis. They never do that. They're just unwilling or unable or restricted from doing that, and so they're not going to show those kinds of full transparency, real analysis work. And so we have to do that.
What comes out of Matt Cutts' mouth, we all go, yes, Matt Cutts, teach us more. And then when we ask for clarification, he goes, because, it's like, why is it that way? Because, and it's like, okay, so nobody actually knows why. The computers have taken over and they're doing things on their own now. We don't know what's going on. So I love that. I mean, that is the clear differentiator. Hey, if you're looking to partner with somebody, the differentiator is the transparency.
Yeah.
It's case studies. It's things that they've experimented on. And that they're willing to kind of just publish and go deep with the things that they've learned, the results they received, the failures they've experienced, all those sorts of things. Just similar to what, you guys are doing on the Moz blog and that we're seeing in other places around the web where you don't just get I'd probably have a heart attack right now if I went onto the Moz blog and saw a 300-word post about SEO that was just like, oh, yeah, here you go. Like they always go deep, full transcriptions. Let's explore this. And I think that's the key. I think that's what people need to be looking for.
Yeah.
How does one manage the flood of SEO things that they could or should be doing? I mean, when you say there's 200 plus ranking algorithms, human nature is like, oh, well, I want to do every single one of those things. Again, back to the checklist. Check. Yep. Did that. Title tags, meta tags, all my on-page SEO is good to go. And then, backlink. How does one manage? What do we place importance on? If I've got 30 minutes a day, or maybe I've only got 20 minutes a day to just kind of take a look at things, what am I looking for? How do I place priority on these 200 plus ranking factors?
Yeah, so I think about it less from a ranking factors perspective. I'm not actually sure that's a great mental model to use. I think that what I vastly, more strongly support and recommend is a model that follows an order of operations. And that's essentially from the SEO fundamentals kind of pyramid up, right? So it starts with, can Google crawl and index your web pages, right? So just pure accessibility. Mm-hmm. From there, are you actually targeting keywords, and have you created content that has the potential to rank for those keywords? And you might want to create like a, keyword to content map where you have, these are the keywords I know I want to target. These are the pieces of content I have on my site that are targeting them. And now I'm going to be thinking about on-page optimization and links and engagement, right? User and usage data signals, social signals, all those kinds of things, right? Amplification and reach. And you can essentially prioritize all of those pieces of work by the importance of ranking for the keyword, right? So I would use the three metrics that I care about most are volume, difficulty, and opportunity. Actually, there's a fourth one, which is sort of importance to my business or relevance to my business. Sure. So, volume is essentially how many people are searching for it. Difficulty is how hard is it to rank for this? Are the people who are ranking in the top 10 crazy high domain authority? They have tons of links pointing to all the pages on their site. They're doing phenomenal on-page targeting. It's going to be really tough to break into those top 10. Or is this a place where other websites are ignoring it, so I have real opportunity there? Third one that I care about is click-through rate opportunity. Is this a search result where Google has a bunch of stuff up above the fold that is knowledge graph or instant answers that's taking away from click-through rate? Ads, images, news, video, rich snippets, whatever kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Is it maps results? And I need to be thinking about how do I get in the maps results versus the classic web results. And then importance, essentially, do visitors who come to this page, from this keyword convert? Are they great customers for me? So you can use those metrics to essentially prioritize which terms and phrases to care about most and what work to do on any given day. If you're ranking number 4 or number 5 for a keyword that's very high importance to you, that's high click-through rate opportunity, low difficulty, high volume, hey, let's try and move up for that keyword, right? And if you've got a bunch of long tail content and you're targeting all these long tail keywords, hey, maybe some investment in just on-page optimization on those pages will make a difference. So that's how I think about it. Not, how do I get all these ranking factors nailed for every single page, that kind of thing. I prioritize.
It's a very human approach to SEO logic, right?
Yeah.
Common sense.
And I think you will get much more return on your investment, whatever time you have, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a week, regardless. If you create this intelligent prioritization, you worry about crawl accessibility, then you worry about keywords, then you worry about content, then you worry about engagement, then you worry about links, then you worry about social.
All right, and we're going to list all those out on the show notes because that's really awesome stuff. Okay, so now my brain is moving towards mobile. I know there's a whole slew of things going on about mobile, responsive, non-responsive, this, that, whatever. But I actually saw an article the other day, and I'll have to dig it up and link to it in the show notes. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head, but they were basically talking about how mobile app usage is really increasing. And you already know where I'm going with this. Okay, so if mobile app usage is increasing and we're seeing web usage from mobile devices decreasing, what's the play here? And actually, I guess right out of the gates, what's your take on that? Is that the case, or is this a very biased kind of agenda pushed article?
Yeah, the data that I have seen from Mary Meeker's Internet Trends, KPCB, who I think is the most reliable source on this subject, is the exact opposite of what you just described. Essentially, you have pretty flat app install rates, meaning that essentially once people reach between 20 and 30 apps on their phone, they just don't install anymore. App churn is extremely high. So when people do install a new app, unless it's the Facebook app or Google Maps or something, like they're uninstalling it very quickly. A ton of the app usage that is going on, the rise in app usage, is driven by games, which I don't really think of the same way. That's a totally different world, right? I don't think of that as like taking away from web. Mobile web uses continue to grow. Google's described how mobile web searches have grown, have just overtaken desktop searches. So I would argue that all the data and trends that I've seen from sources I trust say exactly the reverse. Unless you're in the top, 50 apps, you take those out of the equation and you're just talking about very little app usage overall. You kill Twitter, Pokemon Go, Facebook, Google Maps, Gmail, a few others, and the app world looks dead, totally dead if it wasn't for those top 50. On the other hand, mobile web, those visits are just increasing, searches are increasing, traffic driven to mobile websites dramatically increasing. So I would generally advise, if you're a local business, don't even think about making an app unless you have a phenomenal reason for doing so, a really strategic reason. Unless thousands of people are going, man, I wish that, Phoenix Jeep Cherokee had a mobile app so that I could fill in that blank for me, right? I don't know what that blank is.
Magically, I don't know. Like, what would it even be?
Right? What would it even be? I think this is really tough. Like, I see a lot of folks who come out with great case studies. Zillow had a great case study about how they released a mobile app, and it was a huge success, and their adoption has been great, which makes tons of sense, right? Because a real estate app, when you're searching for a home or selling your home, there's a bunch of things that are very specific and geo-centered and have to do with photos on your phone and saving things and looking up addresses and seeing where you are in a neighborhood. Totally get it. Totally makes sense. But very frankly, for the vast majority of local businesses, I think more investment in your mobile SEO, your local SEO, is going to pay vastly bigger dividends than any app will.
Well, and I mean, the reality of it too, if you look at most of our attitudes towards SEO is that it's already too much on our plate. Could you imagine adding in now the marketing of an app on top of that? So, and this is exactly where I was hoping that would go, because when I read it, I was like, okay, something's not. I mean, this is rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah, the problem is using aggregate data. So if you look in aggregate, it looks like app usage is going up, which it totally is. I'm not arguing that people aren't using apps more and more, but they're mostly using Facebook and playing games more. I don't know how that speaks to a strategy for your local business, right?
Sure.
That is, to my mind, that is not analogous. That's sort of like saying, um, hey, we are noticing that people are eating more cereal. How do we get on the back of cereal boxes? Is that really what? Is that how you think about things? Like,
You
I don't
get
think so.
kidnapped. That's how you get on the back
I
of a
mean,
cereal.
right?
I know it's bizarre thinking. It doesn't make any sense. So I guess in closing here, kind of going down this mobile wavelength, what would you say? Where are we headed with SEO? Is mobile the way? Do you anticipate something down the road where there's people speculating, well, Google's just going to get heavier with their own things, and the need of websites are going to be kind of diminished in the future. And like, where do we go? What should a business be doing today to position themselves for whatever could be coming?
Yeah, I think that there's two things that are very, very smart. One is continue executing on these tactical approaches to the web marketing channels that your customers pay attention to. So if you know that tons of your customers are on Instagram and deeply interested in, the automotive field, and they care about cool new stuff to do with cars, hey, maybe there's an awesome opportunity for you to do something on Instagram. Same thing with SEO and with web search. And that's both with mobile and with desktop, right? Same thing with Twitter or with Facebook or even with something like Snapchat. I have some skepticism around Snapchat's use for businesses, but I think there's a few brands in the consumer space that have shown some attraction there. And then I would pay attention to the field of web marketing, but right now I don't see, I think that it's much more fear and uncertainty and doubt than it is real, hey, you need to change your strategy because, this device is becoming everything. Mobile is not killing web search. Google is definitely taking over more of the SERP space, but they are still sending out increasing amounts of traffic to websites every year. So, if you look at the data from SimilarWeb or other clickstream data collectors, Google's sending out more traffic than it has in the past in aggregate, not less. Yes, for some given queries, that is smaller than it used to be, but I don't think that fear is entirely founded yet. And I think that the better the experience you provide for searchers and for customers, that's everything from user experience to speed of load to serving the searcher intent and query, doing your optimization. The more you do that, the less incentive Google has to take those SERPs away from you.
So basically, stop being so afraid and get in the game today, man. Let Google start rewarding you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's worry about where we're headed when that time actually comes. But if you're in the game, I would submit that if you're in the game and you're doing it actively and you're staying, you keep a finger on the pulse, it's not going to seem like big changes because you're going to be going with the flow of things. Would that be accurate?
I totally agree with that. I think what we see is fast but incremental change in web marketing and SEO, not a fundamental overhaul of everything that was ever true, every few months or every year. Very frankly, if you were doing awesome, phenomenal SEO in 2005, some tactics have changed and updated, but if you were doing those things in sort of a white hat, honest way, that strategy probably is still working for you pretty nicely in 2016.
Yeah, I think about, if you look at Google's core objectives, right, make the world's information more accessible, more relevant. It all comes back to the human side of it, which is, hey, we're just trying to make the web a better, more organized place for you to enrich and enhance your life. That's essentially what it comes down to. Yeah,
and the more that you serve Google's mission with your own web content and presence, the more aligned you are and the less risk that there is that Google's going to take that, that traffic, that opportunity from you.
There you go. Full of power bombs as usual, man. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. Always appreciate it. And I love the fact that, here's a guy that's as busy as they come who, it goes a long way to be able to send you an email every now and again and actually get a response from you, not a robot. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so busy. Like, there's that middle, I call it the middle class of successful people where they're always too busy.
Yeah.
And you skip over them and you go to the like Mark Cubans, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll find 15 minutes for you. So it's a weird thing, but I always appreciate the fact that I can hit you up. You come back with answers or a resource where, in a lot of instances you could just be like, dude, go to my website. Like, what's your deal?
Google's mission is to organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and transparent. And my mission is to make Google's information universally accessible and transparent. So I'm thrilled you had me on. I love contributing to stuff like this. SEO is my passion. So anytime I can help out, just let me know.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
You bet.